Hello, and welcome to the Coach Forum with Coach Dan Rothert of Loras College, men's and women's head soccer coach. My name is Sean Lewis. Dan was actually my former coach at Loras College between the years of 2009 and 2012. He used to serve on the committee for the NCAA committee, a Division III chairman as well in 2012. He's the 2012 National Coach of the Year. He holds a USSFA license, an NCSAA Premier license, a 13-time IET Coach of the Year, 3-time Regional Coach of the Year. He's been included in 18 national tournament appearances, including 6 Sweet 16s and 3 Final Fours. Also, he's won 15 IET championships. That's Dan Rothert. First and foremost, Coach, tell us a little bit about your background, recruiting journey, and Loras College in general.
Yeah, it's funny. I ended up at Loras as a student way back in 1992 out of high school, and I'll be totally honest, the recruiting, I wanted to play college soccer, and back then recruiting was not what it is today. At any level, Division I, II, III, didn't matter. There wasn't really a whole lot of recruiting going on. A lot of part-time coaches out there, if you wanted to play soccer in college, you called the coach and said, hey, I'm coming there and I'd like to play, and they usually gave you a chance. That's kind of how it worked everywhere, and I was fortunate enough to land at Loras College and, called the coach, and they were kind of re-kickstarting their program again with hired their first full-time soccer coach, and knew what he was talking about. It was really the first coach I ever really had. Most of the people I had were dads who hadn't coached a lot of soccer. Great people, but not tactically, astute and things like that. So what really drew me to the profession, Eric Johnson was my coach. He was the coach at Western Illinois, still to this day. And when he left Loras, I was a year and a half out of Loras, and I kind of fell into the position. I had some experience. When I graduated Loras, I moved out to Plattsburgh, New York, and coached at Plattsburgh State University, and helped out with both teams out there, men and women. I'm blessed to be here. I've been here a long time, and like I said, I was a student here, so I had a great experience. I want to give that back to my student athletes.
Do you feel like you found a great niche here, and this is, Loras is where you see yourself for, the foreseeable future and, beyond?
Yeah, you know what? We've had a lot of success. As you mentioned in my bio there, we've had a lot of fun winning and being successful. We've seen student athletes go on to great careers and be great students, but become great citizens and leaders and family, and parents and things like that. That's a fun thing to see. And Loras is, I don't see myself going anywhere. We've had success here. We can win here. We want to win a national championship. We've been close. We have all the pieces in place in terms of support. I learned a long, long time ago that I don't think the grass is greener anywhere else, at least for me. So I think we found a place where, even Division I or whatever, that stuff doesn't tempt me. It's not Division I basketball or football where all the money's at. It's
right.
Division I soccer you're dealing with, and I think it's very comparable level to ours. And if not on a given day, we can be even better. So,
Coach, what is the process that you use, or even the majority of other coaches use when starting a search for athletes?
For me, there's a lot of factors that go into it. I would say when I first started coaching, it was more of a needle in a haystack type approach. You cast the net out. You try to find some kids who could play and would show some interest back, and then and even if they didn't show interest back, you'd still call, email, all that stuff that was prior to texting and all that stuff. But you cast a big net and hope things fell into your place. And I think some coaches still do that, and I think building programs are doing that. I think we had to do it because we were building a program, we were building into success. We had to try to get the best kids we could. So we would cast a big, big net out there and see what we could, narrow down from interest, and then narrow it down more as the year progressed and try to get a good number of kids coming in. I think nowadays and probably for the last decade, since we've had a lot of success, our women's team started their run about 15 years ago, really big success and making the NCAA tournament and stuff like that. Our men about 10 years ago. One of the big things for me is having a connection of some sort.
Right.
Whether it's the student athletes emailing me directly or calling me directly and saying who they are, and that shows to me that they're interested.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that means something. That means I will follow up and go see them play and evaluate and let them know where they stand and things like that. versus, just sitting there idly and thinking the process is going to happen because you're a decent player. It doesn't work that way. For me, a connection of, hey, this kid went to your high school, one of our a current player or a former player has a relative or a friend or somebody like that, and that kid that played for me had a great experience. They tell their friend or their relative about it. That's easy sell for me to be able to get a kid like that or a neighbor or any kind of connection.
Mm-hmm.
Aunt and uncle went to Loras College or something like that, or they've heard of Loras College because their neighbor went there. Might not be a soccer player, but their neighbor has told them, you know what, soccer's great at Loras, and, you should look into it. So, I think the connection piece is really big for me. It's a lot more successful in the, I'm going to see the fruits of my labor a lot more often of going after a kid that has shown interest in us, has responded to an email. We will still cast the net out on a kid and say, man, that kid was really good at this showcase, and we'll still cast the net out. And, if they don't respond, though, probably not going to go after them. I'm not going to make a second call or a second email if they don't respond. It's just, that's something I don't do. And, my advice to all potential prospects out there is respond. And even if it's just, hey, coach, I'm not interested, just do it. And respond and look at the opportunities and see what's out there, because for me, I'm going to go after kids who have shown some interest back or have shown some interest at some level through a connection or whatever it might be, and those are the kids we're going to key in on, and the kid who's, we just saw play at a game and it doesn't respond. I'm not going to deal with more than once. I'll get an email or a phone call or a letter one time, and that's it.
That's got to be one of your biggest pet peeves, right? When you reach out, it's really huge for coaches to reach out to student athletes. They don't hear back, how do you feel after that?
Yeah, it can be frustrating. I've learned to deal with it, but those full voicemail, drive me crazy. The not responding to email or not checking email. I think my huge advice in the recruiting prospect is check email. I know that high school kids, email isn't their world as much as it is someone like myself, but if you want to be recruited, you have to play in that world. And I think a lot of coaches will tell you the same thing. So, my suggestion is to check email and to do that. And to not look past any opportunity. I mean, I think, some kids think they're Division I player, but, or whatever it might be. But like we talked about, Sean, our program plays Division I soccer at a Division III level. It could be a better fit in terms of what the major opportunities are, in terms of, it's a small school, they're going to get more individual attention, they're going to get, a chance to win championships versus maybe going to a Division I school that's, 500, or not even making their conference tournament and being done in late October, and we're playing until early December. Those are things for me that sets us apart. That's something that we're going to try to sell, but that's something that frustrates me from a perspective of sometimes a kid doesn't even take that look, because, this isn't Division I football and Division I basketball where everyone's getting a full ride and, or a lot of people are going to have a chance to play professional and things like that. It's just not the case. It's a very similar playing level. Size doesn't matter, in terms of, you can have a 5'5" center mid who gets the job done, or you can have a 6'6" center back, but that could, you could still have the opposite. You could have a 5'5" center back and you could get the job done at Division I or Division III, so it's not the same.
Do you use certain sites or look at or go to certain showcases?
Yeah, definitely. I try to get to certain showcases, and a lot of times showcases we'll go to based on interest level. We know we're going to have this number of kids at this showcase because they've all shown interest in us back, and it comes back to that, communication piece from the prospect. We know we're going to have 6 kids in Las Vegas. All right, in February, we'll go to Las Vegas because that beats driving to Chicago twice, St. Louis once, Indianapolis once, and why not just go on one trip and get it all done in one-stop shopping. So, I'm looking at the teams that are there based on people we have and who's interested. That's part of it. So we're not just sitting there and out of the blue picking a showcase. We're a regional school, fairly. I mean, most of our kids come from within 6-7 hours away, but, we're not afraid to go further either. But there's got to be good communication for us to go after that kid that's a little further out. But back to the topic of, do we pick certain showcases? That's kind of how we pick the showcases we're going to. It's based off who's there and based on teams and location and region and, teams we've had success with in the past. And so those are important things to look at. And, yeah, I'll look at a website and say, okay, show me that kid's this 5-state radius, have this GPA that have 4-star or above and stuff like that, and try to get my handle on some of those kids that maybe we would miss otherwise. There's kids out there that aren't playing in showcases, and there's kids out there that aren't, that could get skipped over, that are good enough to play, and they're good enough to play for us or good enough to play somewhere. And we don't want them. I'm not going to miss that kid either. So maybe we're finding them through a web service. Maybe it's a random email that, hey, coach, I play 4 sports, but soccer's what I want to do in college, and we have to track that down too. So there's so many different ways to recruit a kid. Obviously, showcases and club soccer and stuff like that is nice, but there's other ways to put yourself out there. And
so how important is video, and what do you like to see in a video?
Video is, I like them to be very short. Minute probably or so would be fine. At max, I'd say about 2 minutes, and doesn't need to go into too crazy much in depth. I think it's really important to see the finish of the play. So many times I get a video where you don't see the first touch, you see the collect of the pass, the trap, and then you see the pass leave the foot, but you don't know at the other end if it was connected.
Right.
I want to see their vision. That drives me crazy. I'll probably turn the video off at that point. So it's really important if you're going to put a video out there that things like that happen. Let's see you finish the play. You dribbled 3 guys, but at the end it cuts off before I saw if you got stuck or if you made a pass or if you got a shot off. I need to know that. If you dribbled 3 guys and you got stuck, I want to know that versus, okay, well, that was a nice little piece of dribbling for part of it, but what happened at the end? But, looking for first touch, vision, athleticism. And again, like I said, I think that's a good introduction. Mm-hmm. I'm certainly not going to rely on it as the end-all, be-all of our, hey, we're interested. It could be, that's a good start to a conversation. Hey, I watched your video. We think we're interested. We want to come see you play live, and kind of see how that all plays out. Because, video is great, but it can be manipulated a little bit too.
Right.
We want to make sure we're getting the real deal. So, it's kind of, like I said, it's the start of a conversation.
I know you talked about passing as a big one. Do you prefer to see passes when the student athlete's under pressure instead of making wide open 5, 10-yard passes when?
Oh, good, yeah. Do not show me a pass going backwards. That is as a pet peeve of mine. I mean, it's easy for me as a outside back to play it back to my goalkeeper, right, to get out of trouble. I call it the Marcus Beasley syndrome because I think he goes backwards too much. But yeah, let me see a penetrating pass. Let me see a pass that creates a scoring opportunity or gets us going forward and things like that. The easy pass, yeah, I don't need to see that. When I'm talking first touch and vision and stuff like that, it's under pressure. I don't want to see your first touch when there's a punt and there's nobody around you. I want to see when you're under heavy pressure and what do you do with it and how do you get out of it and those type of things. So you're hitting it all on the head. I think it's important to see that, but I think limit it to length and give a coach, it's a teaser, You don't want to get too much away where you're showing too much where a coach might just disqualify you. A coach might say, yeah, it was good. The first couple touches were good, but I don't know about the last 2 minutes of the video because it may have bored them. It might have been some of that safe stuff you're talking about, and maybe they'll just lose interest. I think a video is a teaser. I think it's a thing that you can, think of it as like a commercial. Think of it as something that, hey, I'm putting this out there. A coach doesn't have all day to look at it, so like I said, anything over a couple minutes is going to be too much, and you throw something at them that's 3, 4, 5 quality plays, a couple, maybe a defensive play, maybe a passing, maybe dribbling, throw a couple different things in there, and that's how you're going to get that promo of yourself out there. It's a promo.
So when you're looking at student athletes, what separates one athlete from another?
Oh, man, that's a great question. There's a lot of things. Kind of mentioned it earlier, but I think some of it is fit. Does that, and the fit can be a lot of different things. Fit can be, do we have the major they want or not? It can be, does this kid want a small school versus a big school? Financially, is it going to be the right fit? Those are all different pieces to the puzzle. But, so that's really, really important. Find the kid that wants to be at a place like Loras College. But I also think, if all things being equal, if you had this kid who's player A is the same skill level as player B, how do you make them differentiate? I think part of it's what they're looking to do. I want a kid who wants to come in and compete. I want a kid who wants to not afraid to hear that, we have a big team and it's tough to play as a freshman. And, if a kid comes in and says, well, am I going to start as a freshman? It doesn't happen during our program. It just doesn't. It hasn't happened in a very rare occasion. It's the only time in the last, 10 years we've had a freshman start, on the men's side especially. I think it happens more often on the women's side. But, I want a kid that wants to compete and says, you know what, I like it. I'm not going to probably start right away, but I'm going to get better because I'm going to show up every day and play against guys that are as good or better than me versus, well, I can go to this school, down the road, and they told me that I'm going to be a starter for them. Well, you can start for them, but at the same time, you're going to lose to us, and you're going to be playing, your season will be over in October, where you can come for us, make an impact, play some. If you bide your time and you push yourself, you're going to get better, and you're going to be playing for national championships. So that's what we're looking for, is a kid that wants to come in and compete and doesn't have that ego, but is certainly a competitor. I think you can be both. I think you don't have to have an ego, but you still can compete. So.
How important is it for a recruit to call you on the phone?
I would say it's important for them to call me back. I don't necessarily think you need to randomly pick up the phone and call me. I may be challenging because of recruits are busy, prospects are busy. I have a life outside of coaching too, so just to call me at 7 o'clock on a Monday night, I like to be at my kids' baseball game, or a soccer game and stuff like that. And then I feel bad because I haven't responded and things like that. So, I had a kid call me today, and it's great. I know he's interested, but an email would do a very similar level of contact for me. And if you want to call me, hey, Coach, I want to talk to you about, I have a few questions for you, or I want to talk to you about a few things. What's a good time to talk? And I have gone that way since texting's been big, text to set up a phone date, and then we have a conversation. That way we both know it works for us, and, we're not sitting there intruding someone else's life and stuff like that. So I've kind of gone that route. And that hasn't always been the case. Before texting existed, and all that, I was coaching back then, and you would just call and call and call and call and call and call, and you might get a hold of them once, and maybe they'll call you back. But I think it's really important if a coach calls and leaves you a message, call back. Especially at Division I, Division II, there's limitations. If a coach calls and leaves a message, that's a contact for them for the week, and they can't call you again. So it's important that you call them back. Division III isn't quite bound by that, but I'm not going to phone call somebody to death either. I'm not going to sit there and call somebody once a week or anything like that. I know a lot of coaches do that. It's not my style. Once a month maybe, but you also get other info from me, either email, via text. Those kinds of sources are out there too. So, but for a prospect to call, it's getting serious. You want to set up a visit and stuff like that. But again, I think coaches have things going on, whether it's meetings during the day, or they're at work, or they're doing other things, or outside lives. So the same thing that student athletes have.
So if do you only email kids that you like back? If a student athlete emails you and maybe you checked out his profile, would you contact him? Or if he emails you again, do you just ignore it? Or do you just say it's not going to work out? So I have a lot of student athletes that I have to be in communication with, or I have a lot to do with, so I don't respond.
I think it depends on the time of year you catch a coach at. I think, and I'm guilty of it too, I'd love to get back to every kid and say, hey, you know what? I don't see it as being the right fit, especially after I've seen them play or whatever. I had a few. I'm going to showcase this weekend. in Muscatine, Iowa. I've had a lot of kids already on our list. I'm going to evaluate some new kids when I see those teams play, but I have a lot of kids who emailed me and said, you know what, I'm going to be here. Can you take a look at me?
Mm-hmm.
I will try my darndest to respond yes or no that we're interested.
Okay.
You might be catching me going into, next week's our youth camp, and then we have, then preseason starts soon after that, so it might be not at the top of my priority list. It might be get a hold of the kids I need to get a hold of, and I may not respond. I think a student athlete can take the same kind of approach that a college coach takes, If there's not a lot of communication or limited or they haven't reached out to you, they're probably not interested. And it's kind of the same thing that I'm going through on the other side of the fence, and it's frustrating, and but it's part of life too. That there's other great schools out there that may want you. So go after the ones who have shown some interest, and it's the same thing I'm doing with kids the other way. Is I'm going after a kid who's shown interest in us majority of the time because they responded back and they're interested. So it's a lot harder to get the kid who's not showing interest or responding, and same thing on the other side of the fence. I would suggest that way. If a coach isn't responding to you, they're probably not interested. You could try a second time again, but I would, strike three or out type of thing.
Right.
That's kind of how I'd approach it. And,
So will a recruit know about your interests, and how will they know?
well, they will know if they check your email, if they check their mail, and if they open their mail and not their parents, and that's how they'll know. I usually send a handwritten note to a kid who's interested, who we went and saw play and we liked them. We'll also send an email after a tournament or whatever it is. Hey, we're interested, and we saw you play for the second time. We're interested, or whatever it might be. Yeah, we definitely have a process, and we're going to let them know we're interested. Like I said, it might be a little more challenging to let them know we're not interested. That's never a fun conversation either, but I think it's an honest conversation.
It's honest,
I think you need to have those honest conversations, and don't be afraid to ask those questions either as a student athlete. It's like, hey, where do I fit in? I need to know this. And you need an honest answer from a coach. And like I said, if they're saying you're starting right away next year, I think it's a big red flag.
Right.
One reason or another, either the program's not very good, or the coach is full of it, or whatever. So I think those are important things to dictate and to note.
Okay, so what are you doing during your summer, this summer I should say, and what are coaches doing the summer generally?
Well, there's several things.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not off. Rejuvenating a little bit. Sure, you're rejuvenating a little bit. You're not working 12, 14-hour days like you might be in the fall and that kind of craziness. But, the big thing for me is, we're in Division III. We're really formulating our plan for our 2016 class. So kids are going to be seniors, and we don't really have anybody committed at this point, and we've had some visits, and we've had some of that stuff. We have some kids we think might be close on. But it's still early. We still have to have our season, and they still could get offers from other opportunities and things like that. So we're really getting out and about. We're collecting a list of interested kids that could be potential prospects for us. We're going to showcases and evaluating them, and also looking for new talent. And maybe we find, like I said, a needle in the haystack. But so we're sending out information and seeing if maybe we get any responses back for some of these kids who we really target for top kids. And we're starting to get into calls and recruiting calls and stuff like that. For me, I'm just starting that process. Some other schools might be ahead of me on that. Some other schools will be behind me on that, and that's fine. We have our youth camps. We have our overnight ID camp situation. So we have that coming up. And, those are all things that we are rolling in right now. And then come August, it's almost go time. So at that point, we really focus on making sure we're ready for the season, our team ready, all that stuff. And it's tough. The fall becomes tough because you want to recruit and you want to get out on the road and you want to see the next group come in, but you really, my philosophy is focus on my current team. We don't get on the road a ton in the fall, so, it's a kid could play some high school stuff in the fall. We may not be out to them, so we try to get a lot of that done in the summer. because they know in the fall getting out to high school games is a bit challenging for us. And, my staff and myself are a little bit different. We coach both men and women, so it's even that much more busy. So, but we want to focus on our team and, get the most out of our team and hopefully compete for a national championship.
So you guys kind of, touched upon this, but I wanted to ask, because it's very important, a lot of our student athletes get this, how important is it for a recruit to attend an ID camp, or, not just necessarily your camp, but also other camps in general, maybe in a Division I or II school, they send ID camps to a lot of student athletes, for you personally, and also, based on what you know about other coaches as well.
I think there's a place for it. I think the market has, from a perspective of almost every school is doing them now. That wasn't the case 10 years ago.
Right.
I still go to a few Division I camps where there might be some kids who, think they're Division I, but we end up getting them. There's had a few guys that he played with, Kevin Cavers,
right.
Dan Segura. I found at Northern Illinois camp, That's where I first came across them. And, they were there because they were serious about Northern. Northern was showing a little bit of interest, but hey, let's look at them, and those guys ended up being All-Americans for us,
Right.
We have our ID camp. It's good. I think it's really good for that kid who isn't on a club team that goes to a ton of showcases or doesn't go to showcases at all, doesn't have another way to get exposure. And then they can immerse themselves in that camp. If they are serious and they're ahead of the game and they know, hey, Loras is my top 3 and I'm dead serious about potentially going there and playing, then yes, go to their ID camp and see what they're all about and get to know the coaches and student athletes that go there and play it out from there, because that's going to give you a better idea of what the school is all about and what the guys are all about and what the coaches are all about, and you're in the program for 2 or 3 days. But if you're just going to go and randomly hope a coach shows some interest in you, that's okay. But if you're playing club ball and you're in all these showcases and tournaments and stuff like that too, they're going to come see you play that stuff as well. And probably in an environment where you're a little more comfortable. Going to an ID camp where you're playing with guys you've never played with before, and all of a sudden you have to show some things, and maybe you get played out of position, or it's not the formation you're used to, and maybe you get stuck on a team that's not good, and all of a sudden you're playing right back, and the guys that your options aren't very good, so that makes you not look good. There's some risk to it, there's no doubt. But I think there's advantages to it from, hey, if you're really serious about a certain place, I'm all for it.
That's good. So, you touched
and some of the bigger and some of the bigger colleges, some of the D1s, for instance, invite other coaches.
Right.
So finding one that does that, or a combine that's hosted by a neutral party, those type of things can help, because maybe there's going to be 10 or 15 coaches there, and it's not just going to be the coaches at school X. You can find a showcase like that. It doesn't have to be a bigger school. Some smaller schools run them like that as well, and that might give you some opportunity to be seen not just by the coach of that particular school. Maybe the coach of a particular school doesn't have a need for a right back there next year. This guy who's working his camp does.
Good. Yep. Excellent. So, another thing, just what can a Division I, II, III, or even an NAI prospect do for the best chances of getting noticed at a school like you? I know you talked about email regularly or make phone calls. You talked about setting up a time or attend an ID camp. What do you believe?
What's the best way?
Yeah.
I think it's different for every kid. It all depends on what they're doing and what their situation allows. Like I said before, this kid A might be good enough to play anywhere, but he doesn't plays 4 sports and he's not available to go to things, so maybe ID camp or, that type of thing is in his best interest, maybe even going to see him play a high school game, because that's the only way you're going to see him play, because that's the only soccer he plays all year. We've had some of those kids, and they turn out to be great players for us. And I know you know that well, Sean, when we talk about it. We won't bring up names or anything, but, we've had a few of those guys. Then you got, the showcase thing is great, but at the same time, we're somewhat selective. We have budgets that fall within, and we can't go to every showcase in the country, and, we pick and choose based on getting the most bang for our buck and stuff like that. There's a lot of, I think every kid has a different route to get where they end up. And, whether it's a website or a service, recruiting service, that might be something a kid needs because of there's so many options for that kid. They don't know where to start, or and I think that the services do a really good job, at least some of them do, of helping that kid through the muddle to find the clear picture of what they want. But I also think if you know right away that, hey, if my 8-year-old now gets to be 18 and he wants to do a recruiting service, I'll say, no way, man, because I'm not going to come play for your dad, right? So stuff like that. So I think every kid has a different route.
Excellent. That's good advice. Now, how important are visits or in-person contact for student athletes and coaches in the process?
Oh, man, super important. I think it's the most important part of the whole process. I think you get on campus, you get a real feel of what that place is all about, what the school is like. There's things you need to want and not visit. You need to make sure you meet student athletes, soccer student athletes in particular. You need to meet with them and be able to talk shop and be able to talk, hey, what's it like to go here? What's it like to play for coach? Do you play as freshmen? What's the challenges? You need to get that information from those players because the coaches can say how great it is, and they get paid to say that. The admissions office gets paid to say that. Super important to know what the student athletes think and how they feel about the place, but also for you to get a vibe of the coaching staff, for you to get a vibe of the academics, for you to get, the campus life. I encourage a couple visits. I encourage an initial visit, come see the place, maybe for a day, meet with coaches, meet with admissions folks, meet with people in your major, professors in your major area, those type of things, see the campus, get to have some lunch with maybe some soccer players. Do that at a number of places. I don't know how many it could be. It could be 8, 10, whatever. Get the ball rolling with a process like that. Then you narrow it down to 3 or 4 places that you're real serious about, and you go back and maybe do an overnight visit, go see a game in the fall, see them play, see the style of play, see the level of play, see how the coach reacts on the bench, see how the team is in terms of style of play, sportsmanship, all that stuff, and find what fits your profile, what you like about it, and then stay with the guys maybe for an overnight after the game or before the game and just get to ask them questions and see what it's like in the locker room, and those type of things are important.
Would you say that's one of the most frustrating things that student athletes don't give the opportunity to check out the school?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I think that's the game changer. I mean, I did have a kid who was Mike Richter who played for us, and I got to give him a shout out on here. He's the only player I've ever coached that never visited. Besides my international guys, that might happen internationally, but he lived in Chicago. He never visited 3 hours away, and he comes here and leads us to our first Final Four and all this fun stuff. But pretty funny story.
What are what's the most common mental strength you see in a top player? So you kind of talked about it. Just is it being humble, or is it just being confident but understanding? Hey, there's a bigger picture, or what?
I think it's a combination of confidence / competitiveness. They want to win at all costs, but they're not going to do it at cheating or anything like that. But they want to win. They're going to do anything in their power to train to get better and to put themselves in the right spot to win a particular game or win practice. You want practices to be competition and battles and things like that. So I think that's really important to me. And then confidence. I think you got to have some kind of swagger. I mean, I think that sets us apart a little bit sometimes. Is we show up, we expect to win, and I want a kid that expects to win, and I like that. And when they're upset that they didn't win and things like that, that's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. Let's get over it pretty quickly and move on and fix what we need to fix so we can win the next time. But I think those two things for me set kids apart. And again, the kid who wants to compete, I mentioned it earlier, but the kid who wants to compete, he knows he's going to compete for time, knows that he might not play 90 minutes, knows that, but they're going to be competing for big things versus a kid who's being promised something and just takes the easy route because they're, hey, I'm going to go there and start, but I'm just going to have an average career on an average team. Or maybe they're the big fish. They want to be the big fish. I don't want that kid anyhow. I want kids who are going to understand, everybody's going to have a role in this and be part of this process. So,
do you have any advice for parents? Because I know parents are a big part of the recruiting process as well. If you had any advice for the parents in the process, what would it be for them?
That's a great question. I probably have a lot of advice. You know what? I think force your kids to do some visits. I mean, I think that is important, and I think a lot of times kids think they're too busy or they're too, I know I was that kid. I was too busy in high school to make time for visits, and
Right.
Fortunately, I landed at a place where I'm at, and I had a great career, and I'm still there today coaching. But that can change, and you don't want that to make sure you put in the time, and go visit the places early. Like I said before, 7, 8 schools to start with, and narrow it down, and go do some more visits, and just force that kid to make some time for that, so they can understand what the different options are. I think that's really big. Don't oversell your kid. Let the kid do the communication. You can sit over their shoulder and say, hey, you know what, did you contact Coach Rothert today? I know we talked about doing that. But don't write the emails for them. Don't call for them. Man, that's one of the most frustrating things out there is, the email wasn't really from the kid, that was from the dad, and you're like, you can decipher. Pretty easy to decipher the difference and things like that. So those are important to, and be yourself and let the kid be themselves, And if they're not going to be themselves around you, maybe you need to know your limits. And maybe on the visit, you need to get out of their way for a couple hours. Let coach be with them by themselves so they can be themselves. And it doesn't happen to me very often, but a lot of times a parent would say, hey, you know what, I'm going to let them do this. Is it okay if I leave? And I'm like, that's up to you. If you don't want to see the campus, or maybe just do it after the tour and then give us some time, that's fine. But I know their way a little bit. I always make time for our student athletes to, when they're on campus, to have some time when they're not even around me. I mean, I think sometimes the kids not themselves around me. I want them to be themselves, so maybe they have to go spend some time with the current players, and maybe it's just lunch, or maybe it's the overnight visit, but I don't want them to, I may be the face of Loras, but I'm not Loras College, in all the aspects, so I think they need to see what it's all about. So give them some space to do that, but I would say force them to do some things, and force them to say, you know what, no, I'm not interested. I think that's a huge thing for advice for parents is, man, you're chasing a kid for months on months on months, and you think they're interested, and, they showed some interest early, you haven't heard back, and the kid never responds, and, it's not interested, just say it. And I think I'm super appreciative of that, and I think, it kind of goes back to our earlier conversation about, saying no and stuff like that, but I think, that's a tough conversation to have, but I think it's a grown-up conversation. I think it's a conversation that, I always can appreciate that from a kid. If a kid calls me and says, Coach, I've decided, Loras isn't the place for me. The earlier the better. If it's early in the process, great, but, even if it's late in the process, make the personal call, and it might be nervous, and it might be a call that's not the most comfortable, but at the same time, I think it means a lot down the road. We've been really good. Fortunately, we've been really good at getting a kid who comes back, because maybe, I always end the conversation when they say they're going someplace else. Even if I don't think it's the right decision for that kid, I might just say, you know what, best of luck, and if things ever change, the door's open here. It's a kid we really wanted. So, and I've had enough of those over the years, and knowing our program, Sean, you've seen that happen in our program quite a bit. But, I think that's just making the kid be upfront and honest and let them know, but also giving them some space to do it and make them do it on their own. It's their first big life decision, and it affects the rest of their life in a lot of ways. So they need to be you can't be too forceful, and I know some parents think, okay, I can't force this one up. I really want them to go to Loras, but I don't want to force it too much because I don't want them to buck me on this one, or vice versa. There's a happy medium there, and, as a parent myself, I totally understand it, but, I think, you want to make sure that they're just communicating properly and doing the right things with that.
And our final question, this is the grand finale. If there are a couple things for kids to take away today, what's your final piece of advice?
My advice is there's a place for everybody. You need to find the right fit for yourself, but it could be you think you're a great Division I player, but don't overlook a school because it might be the right fit. It might be financially. I get that comes into play and things like that, but don't overlook a place because of ego. That's a big thing. You might say, it's a small school in the middle of nowhere that is not very good, and soccer's not, king there and all that kind of stuff. Sure, I get decisions like that, but, if you want to find a place out there that's a good fit, do it. I think the other pieces of advice that I would, make this a multi-pronged answer is communicate. Like I said, respond to emails. one way or another. You're interested or you're not. It could be a one-sentence email. It could be a text. Return phone calls. I think those are pieces of advice that I can't, speak enough about in terms of how important that is, in terms of if the coach is going to show interest in you or not. Those are pieces of advice. Market yourself. Put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
I pick a few, and I've heard this from some parents that have come visit before, and pick a few schools that you think are ideal fits for you, to go visit. Pick a few schools that might be dream schools for you, and go visit them. Big schools, small schools, medium-sized schools, soccer programs that are D1 and then D3 or whatever, and get a feel and say, hey, that really seemed like the right fit for me. And you leave with a different perspective when you visit a place, and I like that answer. Find some places you think are a good fit, but also visit a few dream schools. And to me, that hits it right on the head. You might think that you're this guy going to play at this school, 30,000, Big Ten school, whatever, and stuff like that. And so put that on your dream school list. No one from there has contacted you, but let's try it. Go visit that place. Talk to the coach, or try to talk to the coach, and the coach might not be available to visit with you, or might not want to visit with you. So then that's your answer right there. If it's a soccer fit for you, do those different things and get a better feel for what colleges are out there. Like I said, every college is good. It's a matter of how it fits into your needs and wants and desires and things like that.
Yeah, I think you definitely, today hit the nail on the head. Recruiting's a numbers game. Like Rothert said, if you're not interested and you've done your research about the school, don't feel bad about letting them know. Hey, coach, I took a look at the school, or I know people that went there, or whatever the case may be. Rothert, his feelings aren't going to get hurt because, they've got other recruits. They've got a lot of recruits to check out. They've got, like we said, maybe a couple of needle in the haystacks as well. But, ultimately, you've got to find the right fit for yourself, and also the coach has to make sure you're a good fit as well. So I think, I definitely think, you got a lot out today. I think it's, it's good to hear from a coach. He's been there, had numerous All-Americans. He's, hosted players and teams that, he can coach 60 guys. He coaches men's and women's as well. He's got, 30 women on the team and also 60 guys, 2 reserve teams. So he knows about player management, and he's, seen it all. So, I'd like to thank Dan Rothert for being with me today. And if there's anything else you want to say, Coach, that's all for today.
No, and that's advice. I think the other thing I think about is, I'm not afraid to give advice to a kid who's visiting. I think it speaks volumes of a program. If you can go there and ask a coach, what, coach, and, what do you think? Do you think I'm a good fit here? What else do you think I'd be a good fit at? I always tell a kid, if they're not interested in Loras, I'm going to help them. Mm-hmm. If they're upfront and honest with me and they called me and said, what, coach, Loras isn't it for me. I want nursing, and we don't have a nursing degree. So what am I going to say? Well, I should say, I know this school, they have a good nursing program and it could be a good fit for you, and they have a good soccer program, and I think that I know the coach there. Want me to give him a call, or just who you should reach out to? The coach is not afraid to do that. You're finding a pretty quality person, I think, that's going to help you through a lot, and it may not pay off in you going there, but maybe later down the road, their little brother goes there, or something like that. So I'm all about being upfront and honest. I'm also about helping people. And, so don't be afraid to ask for help and ask a coach, hey, what, coach, what do you think? Or a local coach, maybe you're from a town that has a college in it, or a New York town that has a college in it, and you know somebody, or you've been to their camp since you were a little kid. Ask them questions, and maybe they'll help you out too.
All right. So, Rothert, he's a very stand-up guy. I ran track my senior year just to stay in shape for soccer. He's the only coach that asked me how'd state track go. So right there, that made me know that, hey, if I go to the school, he's going to take care of me. He actually is interested and, excited about having me on campus. So
that's fun. We had a great time doing it, Sean. So.
Excellent. Unfortunately we didn't get to that national championship, but it was a fun experience, and we got to play some great soccer.
Yep, you bet.
Excellent. All right, thanks, Coach.